Welcome back to the Retro Vault, where we'll be looking at and diving into stories from games of old. In this installment, we'll be travelling back to the PS2 era again, and looking at the story behind a game that I actually consider one of my favourites from my younger years. This is the story of Sega's 2001 action-adventure game, Headhunter. Although not a horror game, this game did draw some comparisons to Resident Evil, but it was also compared to Metal Gear Solid 2. The story follows Jack Wade, a bounty hunter for the Anti-Crime Network, or the ACN, in Los Angeles. I won't say much else as we'll just dive into the story, but before we begin, even though this game is now 23 years old, there will be spoilers in this video for Headhunter. Let's begin. Okay, so let's begin by discussing the world this story is set in. It's sometime in the near future, and the US has come up with an interesting way of punishing criminals. A war in the Middle East resulted in financial success for the US, and the US military were privatized. The US President, President Goodman, had formed an elite force of private law enforcement officers known as Headhunters, headed up by the wealthy and influential US politician, Christopher Stern. These Headhunters and the ACN would spend billions on the crackdown on organized crime. These Headhunters would be fully certified in accordance with something called LAILA, which stands for the Law Enforcement Intelligence and License Approval. How it works is that all wanted felons in the US had bail bonds set by the US government, and the value of bail bonds would be listed on something known as the criminal exchange. If the felon commits more and worse crimes, their bail amount rises, and the rehabilitation of the felon sees that figure fall. Headhunters would receive 10% of the bond, and the rest goes to the ACN. If a felon is unable to meet their bail bond themselves, they face compulsory organ donation. Other stuff was changing too, as in order to protect valuable organs, certain weapons were manufactured that were organ-friendly, if you like. Traditional weapons were outlawed, and EMP guns were rolled out by arms manufacturer Smith & Easton. These weapons attack the nervous system instead of harming the internal organs. The US government then partnered with the Biotech Corporation, who designed a system known as a criminal control system. Essentially, the CCS is a brain chip that uses neural redirection, and this suppresses criminal urges and reduces aggression. However, many think that criminal organizations have found a way to deactivate these chips, allowing criminals to act freely. Biotech planned to improve the chip by developing its ability to monitor the thoughts of a felon. But the US government had made an enemy, a mysterious man known only as Don Fulci. Fulci, who claimed to be an honest businessman, would hijack television programs in order to denounce the ACN's activities and their war on crime. He claimed what the ACN was doing is a threat to democracy, and that Christopher Stern is a dictator, with the ACN being his private army. Unfortunately, the importance of human organs to the nation meant that the value of these organs also increased on the black market, and this led to the ACN foiling many large-scale criminal organ trafficking networks, with some large organ trafficking hauls estimated to be worth $30 million. But with the setting established, let's move on to the story. Professional headhunter Jack Wade finds himself inside a secret laboratory, and two researchers are talking about Jack's neural resonance. Breaking free of his restraints, Jack shoots and kills the two researchers and fights his way out of the facility, taking out guards on the way to the exit. Outside in the pouring rain, Jack collapses, but he wakes up 1 week later in hospital. Jack seems to be unaware of where he is or how he got there. The nurse states that Jack has retrograde amnesia. Watching TV, Jack sees a news report regarding the assassination of the ACN founder, Christopher Stern, with some believing Don Fulci to be the man responsible. Stern's daughter Angela is mentioned, along with the fact that she was being comforted by the vice president of the ACN, a man named Alan Sharp, who Christopher Stern had picked as his eventual successor. A man walks into the hospital room, Chief Frank Hawk. Jack was one of his best headhunters. Hawk puts Jack's memory to the test and finds that in terms of his training and his knowledge of weaponry, Jack is still sharp in that regard. Hawk says that although Jack was a fully qualified and elite headhunter, because of his amnesia, Jack has been stripped of his LAILA license by the ACN and will need to reapply for a new license as an independent agent. Before leaving, Hawk warns Jack that he's woken up with quite a few new enemies. A little later, Angela Stern walks into Jack's room. She says that she needs Jack's help in tracking down the man who killed her father. She too believes that man to be Don Fulci. She offers Jack $2 million for his services. Meeting Angela at her father's house, Angela explains that Jack was the last person to see her father alive, as Jack had a meeting with him prior to his death as they were working together on a secret project. Leaving, Angela lends Jack her superbike, and Jack heads off for the Layla licensing offices. At the offices, Jack comes face to face with an old nemesis, Hank Redwood, a fellow headhunter, and now that Jack has been fired by the ACN, the #1 headhunter in the organization, and Hank's just achieved the highest possible license, a AAA license. After some witty banter with Jack taunting Hank for his wife and his dog walking out on him, Jack speaks with the lady behind the desk. She gives Jack the rundown on the Layla license, and Jack sits at the VR module, preparing for his test. Hank had smashed all of the previous records, set by Jack funnily enough, so Jack has something to aim for. Passing all of his tests, Jack is awarded a C license, a Casio Visual Manager so that Angela and Hawk can stay in touch, along with the perks that come with it, access to light weaponry, along with low-level government documents. Hawk also gives Jack access to some of his old level 1 files to help jog his memory as to what the meeting with Christopher Stern was about. Jack reads that he wrote that Christopher Stern seemed jumpy and that he was convinced someone was moving against him from within the ACN. He remembers a felon named Grey Wolf. Grey Wolf leads a biker gang who calls themselves the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack are in league with another criminal organization who call themselves the Syndicate, who, rumor has it, have Don Fulci as their CEO. Tracking down Grey Wolf is Jack's best lead on Fulci. He reads about how he had previously tailed one of Grey Wolf's cronies to an abandoned gas station. He also reads about how 2 of Grey Wolf's goons turned on him and acted informant. A call with Angela sees her activate the 2 informants' chips, so they show up on his visual manager. Jack heads to the gas station and deals with Grey Wolf's gang members. Unfortunately, the 2 informants are dead. Jack then comes face to face with Grey Wolf himself, who then flees. Going after Grey Wolf and using a keycard that he found for the AMCO building, which serves as the Wolfpack HQ, Jack gains entry to the building and heads to the 3rd floor. He finds some truth serum on a table and a note detailing its use in the interrogation of the 2, now dead, informants. He overhears Grey Wolf telling his men to kill Jack. They fail, obviously, and Jack gains entry to the conference room to confront Grey Wolf. Grey Wolf leaves his second in command to deal with Jack. He too fails, and Jack goes up to the roof and confronts Grey Wolf. Jack fights Grey Wolf, eventually defeating him. Helping him up and saving his life, he has a change of heart and tells Jack what he needs to know. He mentions Fulci's cargo ship called the Queen of Hearts, and that it's a ship that transports black market organs in from China and the Middle East. He doesn't know what Fulci wants the organs for though. Jack then arrests Grey Wolf and leaves him on the roof. Leaving the AMCO building, it seems that the ACN arrived shortly after, or rather, Hank Redwood did, took Grey Wolf into custody, took credit for his capture, even though it was Jack that did all the heavy lifting. Grey Wolf has been incarcerated in the Aquadome underwater prison, a place where Grey Wolf feels he'll be a lot safer now that Fulci knows he failed him. Jack now needs to upgrade his Layla license to a B grade in order to access higher level files, so he enters the VR missions once again and passes them all. Receiving his upgraded equipment, Jack looks at the files. The Queen of Hearts' purpose is listed as a cargo ship delivering various items, such as supplies for road building and items to support humanitarian work, and is due to dock there in the city within the next couple of days. He doesn't really learn much about Don Fulci, but he does learn about another notorious criminal, Esteban Ramirez. He's known as the Cyber Cowboy. His CCS chip has been disabled, which has resulted in brain damage and for Ramirez to have extreme psychosis. He's currently believed to be working with the Syndicate. Angela calls Jack and she asks him to go over to her father's house to discuss their strategy for when they find Fulci. Getting there, it's clear that the Syndicate have been there as Angela has been kidnapped and the word payback time has been sprayed onto the wall, clearly aimed at Jack for interfering in their operation. The TV news report mentions Syndicate criminal activity at the mall and that hostages are being held, with one of them being Angela. Hawk mentions that the aforementioned Esteban Ramirez is in charge of the terrorists. Hawk tells Jack that the perimeter is closed off, but that he could get into the mall via the sewers. Racing over to the mall, Jack enters the sewers and overhears 2 goons talking about Angela, and they're not saying very nice things. Sneaking past them or taking them out, Jack heads up into the mall, and a call from Angela sees her tell him that they've kept her trapped inside an elevator shaft between floors. In the management area, deceased people are everywhere, but entering a vent, Jack overhears a conversation between Ramirez and one of his men. They're talking about a Project Millennium being on course. Ramirez leaves a control card which controls the security systems on the desk, saying he's off to prime the charges on a security unit, and then he's off to the bank. Entering the room, Jack grabs the card for the security systems and heads back down into the sewers, activating the security systems. With them back on, Jack reads a document gained from the security room, a letter from Fulci to Ramirez, which explains that the purpose of Project Millennium is to destroy the security units that protect the worldwide integrated web by way of strategic bombs placed all over the city. A computer at the Millennium Bank is hooked up to this network too, and that's exactly where Ramirez is headed. Jack eventually gets to Angela and helps her out of the elevator shaft. She explains that the bombs and hostages are a diversion, and that their true goal is to rob the Millennium Bank and to put all the money into offshore accounts. They're robbing everyone who has money in the network, and this would make the syndicate richer and more powerful than the government. Angela says that if they can hook her computer up to the bank's mainframe, she can hijack and scramble the transfers. An explosion rocks the stairwell, but thankfully, Angela is okay. With the bank's security mainframe having been blown, Jack needs to get to the bank and fast. Avoiding ACN agents who have gained access to the mall now that the security has been disabled, Jack heads down to the sewers and up to the bank. He finds Ramirez there. After bigging himself up, he reveals his weapon, acid-spewing cyber spiders. Jack shoots them and uses them to destroy the door that Ramirez is standing behind, incapacitating him. With Ramirez wounded, he still refuses to tell Jack anything, so Jack uses the truth serum that he found at the Wolfpack HQ. Ramirez starts to spill. He says that he's using false fingerprints, and Jack uses Ramirez's hand to gain access to the computer. Angela works her magic, and working with Jack, she's able to block the signals, and instead, she deposits money from the syndicate's accounts into every customer's account on the network. She siphons what's left into a locked account. Ramirez, still feeling the effects of the truth serum, tells Jack that the Wolfpack set up something and mentions the words Pentagon, Phoenix, and Big Bang. Ramirez says that he saw plans at the Wolfpack HQ, so Jack needs to head there. But first, he needs to upgrade his Layla license in order to see what the government files say about Phoenix. Chief Hawk calls and tells Jack that one of the men he killed in the mall was an ACN agent. He's been caught on surveillance and is now being hunted by other headhunters, but Jack says that he's being set up. He's getting too close to something. After smashing all of Hank's records and upgrading to an A license, Jack learns that Phoenix is a codename for a Dr. Thomas Groening, the director of armaments research. He's also the military's top expert into the research of nuclear fission. This is bad. His daughter went missing 2 months ago, so it's clear the syndicate are making him do stuff for them in line with his field of expertise. Jack heads over to Wolfpack HQ and avoids the ACN agents there. He heads into the filing room and finds the plans. He discovers a map with bomb locations on it, along with disarm instructions. This is the Big Bang that Ramirez mentioned. At that moment, during a new broadcast, John Fulci hijacks the broadcast and mentions the money that was taken from the syndicate. He wants it back and says that if it isn't returned, he will detonate a thermonuclear device in Los Angeles. Time is short, so Jack races from location to location, disarming the triggers for the nuclear bomb. After disarming the last one, Chief Hawk calls Jack and says that he'll see what he can do about the charges against him being dropped. However, Jack is knocked out by Hank Redwood. Of course, the ACN and Hank Redwood go on to take full credit for disarming the bomb and saving the city, but nonetheless, crisis has been averted, and the syndicate are still reeling after losing their money. Jack, meanwhile, has been sent to the Aquadome underwater prison. The Aquadome has an arena where inmates will fight for the right to leave with a biotech implant and to enter into rehab. Losers have their organs removed for donation. Jack is scheduled to fight in the arena. He chooses none other than Grey Wolf as his arena partner, but immediately Grey Wolf is knocked out by the gladiator, leaving Jack to face him alone. Using electricity pressure plates on the floor, Jack is able to defeat the gladiator. However, Jack is denied his freedom as gas knocks him down. Grey Wolf helps Jack out though, hands him a gas mask saying that they are even, and they escape the prison together. Surfacing, they spot Fulci's cargo ship, the Queen of Hearts, and they board. Meanwhile, Angela speaks with Alan Sharp. He says that they are close to finding Christopher Stern's killer, and that Angela shouldn't trust Jack as he's not who she thinks he is. Jack contacts Angela and tells her that he's on the Queen of Hearts, which, as scheduled, is heading for the docks. So, Angela heads to the docks. Making her way through the heavily guarded area, she overhears two goons talking about EMP guns being loaded onto the Queen of Hearts, and that they're supplied by Biotech, and that Biotech want the organs. That is who Fulci is supplying the illegal organs to. She also hears them talking about the fact that Jack got caught on the ship and that the ACN are willing to pay for him, and that they're going to make the exchange out at sea, in neutral territory. Angela hides inside a cargo container and gains access to the ship as it leaves port. Heading inside the ship, Angela discovers that the sailors on the cargo ship were nervous about what it was they were transporting, with some stories of biotech conducting messed up experiments with the organs. The captain's diary also mentions an outbreak at the biotech labs, a virus called Bloody Mary. Another crewman mentions overhearing someone's voice in the radio room, a voice that made him shudder, and his fellow crewmen mention that this person, Don Fulci, has paid off someone big inside the ACN who agrees with what the Syndicate are doing. She finds Jack. The walls of the cells are weak, so she crafts an explosive using 3 chemicals and blows up the wall. She also found a strange master disc. Angela heads up to the bridge to see what's on the disc, and Jack needs to find Grey Wolf. Heading to the lower decks, Jack enters the cargo hold. Inside a freezer, he finds the ship's murdered captain. Jack grabs his keycard and, using a dictaphone with the captain's voice on it, he gains access to the next area. He finds an ACN agent inside who pleads for his life. He says that he's just supposed to guard the engine room, but says that he's heard the guys who drive the biotech trucks saying that biotech are up to some weird stuff. He mentions a screwed experiment on a man thing. Jack knocks the guy out, but unfortunately he finds Grey Wolf dead. Going through to the rear of the ship, Jack heads out to the helipad. He spots a fat man in a wheelchair. Mistaking him for Don Fulci, the man corrects Jack, saying he's just a loyal Syndicate employee who runs the smuggling operation for Fulci. The ACN helicopter arrives for the exchange, shoots the man dead, and to Jack's surprise, Esteban Ramirez jumps down and mans a mounted machine gun. He says that the ACN and the Syndicate are now working together. Shooting out the lights, Jack fights Ramirez for the second time, and once again defeats him, for good this time. Being shot at by the ACN chopper, Jack makes it to safety and heads up to the bridge. He speaks with Angela, who has almost finished analysing the master disc. It's one of Fulci's broadcasts. Sharpening the image reveals Fulci to be Alan Sharp. With the cargo ship falling apart, Jack and Angela need to leave. Jack uses a lifeboat and picks Angela up, and they leave just as the Queen of Hearts sinks to the bottom of the ocean, with it being reported that Don Fulci is dead. Back at the stern house, Angela uses the money she took from the Syndicate accounts to pay off Jack's bail bond, meaning that he's a free man. They are unsure what to do with the master disc, saying that Sharp will just claim it's a fake, and that he's a very powerful man now. Angela suggests that Alan potentially killed her father. Jack then gets a call from Chief Hawk asking him to meet, that there are things about the ACN that Jack needs to know. He says that Sharp needs to go for the good of the ACN, and he wants Jack to meet him at Biotech, but in order to get in, Jack needs to get level 4 clearance, which means a AAA license. So he goes off to Layla again. Smashing all of Hank's new records again, Jack obtains his AAA license and the equipment that goes with it. He reads some of the files that his new clearance allows, and it's pretty much confirmed that Biotech were the recipients of large amounts of illegal organs and had likely paid off the port authorities. Jack heads to the biotech labs and enters via the sewers. He is confronted by Hank Redwood, who has clearly been sent by the ACN to stop Jack. Hank reveals his aspirations to be chief of the ACN, and he wants a duel against Jack. As expected, Hank attempts to cheat, but Jack reads it and shoots and kills Hank. Entering the biotech building, Jack finds his way down to the lower levels. Avoiding lasers and taking out numerous guards, Jack enters biotech lead scientist Dr. Zweiberg's office and discovers a secret door. He enters.
Good of you to come, Jack. But then I knew you would if the chief here whistled. I simply fed his suspicious mind a little, and presto, here we all are. Drop your weapon.
Sorry, Wade. I didn't know it was a setup.
Of course he didn't. He was just thinking of the agency. So loyal, so dignified, so dead.
No!
Time for some new blood at the top. I was grooming Redwood as his successor, but I could get used to this hands-on work.
You have plenty of blood on your hands, Fulci. Starting with Christopher Stern.
That's half true, at least. You'll just love the other half.
He treated you like a son.
I was his project. I suffered his lectures and his moralizing. What I couldn't take was seeing the ACN run like an antique. It should be running the country. When he threatened to pull funding on biotech's mind control program, I knew it was time for a change.
So you murdered him?
Now there I had help. I think my recording caps yours.
Can't be.
Take pride in your work, Jack.
I couldn't have. I'd remember.
It slipped your mind. You have amnesia. Fact is, you were the perfect assassin. Working secretly with Stern. Tracking the insider he feared was out to kill him. You were the last one he'd suspect.
I don't believe it.
Come now, Jack. Don't lose your head over this.
I trusted you, believed in you.
Angela, listen to me.
You killed that too.
Young lady, please. Mr. Wade is correct. He knows nothing of your father's death.
Zweiberg?
Dr. Zweiberg. A title earned with a lifetime service to this dubious collective you call a nation, for which nature rewards me with a cancer. Mr. Wade's amnesia, on the other hand, is entirely self-inflicted. He insisted on running away while certain procedures were in progress, damaging the memory centers of his brain. This was, of course, after he executed my wishes. And your father.
No.
The mind control chip implanted in your skull was damaged, along with your memory. So I am reduced to cruder methods. Pity. Control the mind, and you control the body. Even the body politic. Sharp thought Stern's death was to further his own plans. Mastery of the criminals and their booty. A vulgar ambition. But Stern threatened much more than the mind control program, something of which you are a part.
What more do you want from me?
I want you to die, Mr. Wade. But first, give me a piece of your mind. Pleasant dreams, Mr. Wade? I believe the tranquilizer has that effect. Since I was a child under the jackboot, I dreamed of a world ruled by intellect. Years of experiments on the criminal dregs of society, and on you, finally produced this. Totally organic, pre-programmed to control every thought, feeling, and action. This chip will lead the world to a new order of purity, discipline, and obedience.
You plan to stick that thing in everyone?
Hardly. A new world deserves a new species, free from decadence and decay. Meet Adam, prototype of the new race. His body enhanced with nanotechnology, self-healing, self-modifying, adapting over days, not generations. His mind filled with my own mental image, the intellect of a genius. The chip, a part of his DNA, ensuring that even after my death, he and his successors continue to follow my will. After you killed Stern, I decided to give Adam some of your more ruthless qualities. But when you interrupted the transfer, he was left damaged. That will soon be corrected. Here, you must be thirsty after the procedure.
You expect this thing to rule the world?
Not alone. Mass production requires huge amounts of DNA protein. Fortunately, the Syndicate proved a reliable source once I told Sharp it was needed for mind control chips. Besides, once my children are ready, the world will be on its knees. Humankind all but wiped out by a deadly virus.
Bloody Mary.
Named after my late wife. A modified Ebola. It dissolves the internal organs to a pulp, fitting end to this corrupt civilization. And distribution was laughably simple. Once introduced, the virus remains dormant until I activate the trigger. Then it becomes virulently contagious, creating a plague from which only Adam is immune.
And what's the trigger?
I must tend to Adam. Graft in the missing neural sectors from your scan. Relax, Mr. Wade. But remember, too much TV can damage your health.
Okay, so I should explain. So biotech have a subsidiary company called Biopop. They created a product, a drink called X-Must. Biotech offered to send loads of cans of the drink to third world countries. It was disguised as humanitarian aid, but this was a ruse as it contained the Bloody Mary virus and the trigger for the virus. While Jack is being subjected to repeated X-Must adverts, Angela wakes up in organ processing. She glances to her left and sees a stone-cold Alan Sharp, who is being prepared for organ donation. Leaving the room, Angela destroys the security mainframe and gains access to the amphitheater. She finds Jack and helps him out, freeing him from his torment. Jack tells Angela to stay back, as he's infected with the Bloody Mary virus. Naturally, Zweiberg's creation Adam is immune, so Angela needs some of Adam's DNA in order to create a vaccine. Telling Jack to stay put, Angela heads into the main lab.
What are you doing here?
Looking for a little contribution to science.
Get away! Don't touch him! Ah! No! What have you done? Adam, lie back, my child. Lie back, and I'll take away the pain.
Bullets do pretty much nothing to Adam due to his regenerative abilities, so switching on the gas and causing hot bursts of gas to hit Adam, Angela is able to defeat him. She takes the sample and then leaves. Whilst Angela is on her way to develop the vaccine, let's look at what Zweiberg was planning. Remember, Zweiberg held up a chip? This chip was called the Onyx chip. It's a behavioral control chip. For this new race that he was creating, Zweiberg had Adam as the prototype for that new race. The Onyx chip was a method of control over people's bodies long after they died, their death being brought about by the Bloody Mary virus delivered by the X-Must. This chip is woven into the DNA of the subject, so any future generation of this new race, Homo superior, would behave the same way. Zweiberg was fed up with human beings' decadence and decay and pictured a race of supreme beings, and this race would of course be immune to Bloody Mary, and future members of that race would be programmed to seek out and kill human beings. EMP weapons would not work on them either due to nanotechnology. A high-power energy weapon called the Judgment Cannon was also created, which far exceeded the power of any EMP weapon, and the plan is for all members of the new race to carry them. But that's enough about Zweiberg's plans for domination. Let's continue. Using the DNA and saline solution, Angela is able to create a vaccine from Adam's DNA. Heading back to the amphitheater, she administers it to Jack. Jack and Angela don't spot it on the cameras, but Zweiberg crawls up to Adam and injects him with some nanites, which he says will heal him for time enough for him to have his revenge. Adam rises. Zweiberg crawls to a console and activates a self-destruct sequence. Angela says to Jack that the broadcast is about to be broadcasted all over the world via satellite. She says that she's going to stay there and try and stop it, but that in order to override it, she needs Jack to activate an uplink, which is in the lab. So Jack sets off. Avoiding various enemies and traps, Jack makes it to the lab, and Adam is gone, but Zweiberg is now dead, and Jack activates the uplink. Angela manages to divert the satellite away. Jack heads back to Angela and they're about to leave, but there's one more surprise. Adam's here for his revenge. He swats Angela out of the way and Jack is forced to fight him. He avoids the projectiles from Adam's judgment cannon and seemingly defeats him. Adam begins to regenerate though, and Angela says the nanites are adapting his body and he's absorbing energy from the bullets. Stunning him, Jack picks up Adam's discarded judgment cannon, charges it up and shoots a hole straight through him. With the monstrosity dead, Jack and Angela scramble to escape the facility, which is about to blow up. They make it out just in time, and Angela mentions that the millions upon millions of people out there with the virus inside them. Jack says that without the broadcast, the virus is harmless. Jack and Angela then share a tender moment, and the game then ends. But this story is not over.
Voices from the deep. Salvage teams seeking to recover organs from the wreck of Don Fulci's ship, the Queen of Hearts, today confirmed that unexplained signals are emanating from the seabed. This follows reports of interference to satellite navigation equipment from shipping in the area. Experts say this is not a standard distress signal, but until divers cleared debris from the ship's transmitter, it's impossible to say what the...
And that's it for the story of Headhunter, the first one at least. I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of Headhunter Redemption so that we can continue the story on. Overall, a pretty cool storyline in this game. If you enjoyed journeying through the story with me either for the first time or whether you've played through it yourself, please do me a favour and leave a like on the video, subscribe if you aren't already, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. But for now, take care and I will see you in the next one.